Hey, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in to another marriage chat. And so, this is Pastor Keith and Lady Step. And so, we thank you guys for taking time out of your evening. It's Thursday evening, so I assume we did not interrupt any romantic plans that you may have had. And so, if we did, it's okay. We won't keep you long. I think you had time later on to continue those plans. So you should already have eaten your chicken and your pasta, whatever you're eating for dinner. And so this is an opportunity to have a good round chat about marriage, a good tune-up chat. So don't forget a couple housekeeping notes, right? This is an interactive session. You can ask us questions in real time. How do you do that? You go to slido.com and you punch in this code, which is 49790. 49790. So punch in that code, ask any question you want, and guess what? You can ask the question anonymously. You can identify yourself if you like, but you can ask it anonymously. Why do we do that? That protects you for having to tell lies that you're asking a question for a friend who knows a friend who knows a friend. So you can just type it in there, and we don't know who it's coming from, and you can be as honest as possible. The more questions we get, the better this session is. Do not think that someone else will ask a question. Do not think that your question is not worth asking or a crazy question. Just ask the question anyway. Ask the question anyway. So, babe, you got anything?
No, I don't have anything. Sorry, I'm texting the sound people over here, asking them to fix something, which is my boys, by the way. No, I don't have anything to add to what you said. Only thing I just want you all to do is just join in, like he said. You know, make it an interactive session, and it'll be real good. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about a few topics. We're going to start doing this once a month instead of doing it like every other week like we were doing before. We're going to go ahead and do it once a month. And that way everybody can just kind of already have it on their calendar. And we're going to try to shoot for the end of the month. So that way, like I said, you guys can already be prepared and be ready to hear it. Um, Tonight's topics, and I'm not sure who may be interested in these, but we're going to talk about blended families and how to blend them with adult children. We're going to be talking about balancing roles in marriage. We're also going to be talking about issues or expectations due to how each other was raised. And the last one is going to be differences of opinions. Now, a few of these we can probably go through pretty quickly. There may be a few that we'll spend a little bit more time on. However, within this hour that we're before you, we'll go ahead and get to the nitty gritty. So I'm going to let Keith go ahead and start. We're going to start off with blended families and how to blend them with adult children.
How to blend in with adult children? I don't know who asked that question from before, but that is a good question. So I'm going to make some assumptions as I answer this question. So the assumptions that I'm going to make is that it is two individuals who are married, newly married, or haven't been married that long, and um, one or both of them have grown children, and they're trying to navigate their way through having a happy marriage and also dealing with the kiddos or the grown kids. First of all, they're grown. I can stop right there. They're grown, and they have probably been launched out into the world already, doing whatever they're doing. working, going to school, what have you. And we know we live in a time where kids, even though they leave home mid 20s, they still need their mama, they still need their daddy, or what have you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they're grown,
Right.
and so um, if you are if you are the step parent, the best you can do is try to befriend them and be friends with them. And you probably it if they're grown, the chances of them really truly accepting you as an authority figure in their life is going to be slim. They're going to accept you as my mama's husband or my daddy's wife. That's probably the label or the title that you're going to get, because if they're grown, they probably have some sort of relationship with their mother or their daddy already, and so you're just going to be the other person, which is fine. And so your job is to not, as the Bible says, do not provoke your kids to wrath. That's your job. Your job is to love them like you love yourself. Again, that's the Bible. And so typically in these situations, the problems that come up are not so much surrounding rearing the kids or raising the kids. The problems that come into play when there's grown kids is when those kids need something. When they find themselves in a pickle or find themselves in trouble, they might need some money, or they might need something to solve a problem. And so in that particular situation, and you're trying to guard your marriage, remember, your marriage is number one above their situation. That might sound harsh, but it's number one above their situation. So if the kids come and want to have a conversation about money or this and that, you're going to have a conversation with your spouse, and you guys are going to have to talk about how you're going to solve that together. It would be helpful if going into the marriage, you guys can have conversations and lay some ground rules and talk about how you're going to solve those issues when they come up, because they will come up. And then you would have some sort of ground rules, and they're laid out. It doesn't benefit the biological parent to go behind the step parent's back and try to take care of issues and do those things. That just makes things even worse, and you shouldn't do that. You should confront everything head on as a team, as a couple, and you should be in unity right in front of the kids. The kids call, both of y'all on the phone. Y'all talking through it. Or the kids come over, both of y'all both of y'all sit down, y'all talk with the kids, and then whatever decision y'all need to do, y'all do it together. That way the kids will see a unified front. And so, again, you can't let grown kids interrupt the marriage that God has ordained. So, bang.
All right. He done preached a whole little mini message just now. I'm just kidding. So there was a study done, and it was in reference to blending families. It didn't specify whether the families had adult children or younger children. However, what it did say is that whoever's going into a relationship that has the children, or if it's both, you have to give it at least 1 to 2 years in reference to allowing those children to adapt to the changes. It's one of those things where when you take on a spouse, and I'm seeing this more and more these days, that older people are going into relationships, and should I say, and they're getting married at older ages. So therefore, it means that they're going to have adult children. So on that note, when that happens, I think a conversation should be had when you two are dating, as opposed to bringing someone home and introducing them. Not saying that the person may or may not do this, but introducing them to your children, be like, okay, this is what we're planning on doing. I really feel like that conversation needs to be had with the person that you're going to start the relationship with, as well as with your children, for the simple fact that the person who you're getting ready to marry, you need to make sure that they're comfortable with being with you, being that you already have children, or vice versa. Um, if that person says that, I really don't want to already make family, or whatever the case may be, and this is pretty much probably for younger children, then I think that you should probably go ahead and part ways. I hate to say it that way, because you're not going to get them to change their mind overnight. And if the children are grown children and you're entering into a relationship, like Keith was saying, you can't go in expecting to be their birth parent. You just have to go in and figure out a way to build a relationship with them, as well as do it in a manner to where hopefully there's not like a lot of conflict. Many times, adult children can act like children, and they could give that person a run for their money, because they feel like that person came in and is taking away their parents who they were relying on for so many years. As we were preparing for this, I read a funny story, and it just kind of tickled me how this one woman, she went into a relationship with this man who had grown children already, and what she didn't realize is how latchy the grown children were. So she said, like, maybe like halfway into their first year of marriage, one of the grown sons told his daddy, I need a place to live. And the daddy said, sure, come on over. And the wife was like, okay, I didn't know I was going to have to be supporting a grown man. And pretty much she was saying that this guy just didn't do anything. He just laid around, didn't want to work, but she felt like she didn't have any leverage, because it was her husband's son, and he wasn't trying to make him go out and do anything. So she felt like she was stuck. And I just thought that was a little comical, because I thought about myself, and I was thinking, like, I love if I'll be like, I love you, but you got to do something about your son. Make him get a job or something. But at the same time, she was just talking about how much she loves her husband, and she never wanted to do anything that would cause them to have an argument. And with that being said, I really feel like conversations can be had, and they can be serious conversations without it leading to an argument. But it's going to take the two people who are together to come to an understanding and see that the person is not trying to just be mean to this other person's children. It has nothing to do with that. You're just trying to build a relationship with the one that you're planning on being with for whatever amount of years.
And let me say this too, that these are hard decisions, and it's a hard topic, because you're gonna have one parent that, that's their kid, they love them, and then the other parent, they did not raise that child or was around that child, and so they can love them with the love of Christ, but there's a different sort of love when you don't raise your kids.
Right.
So that spouse that is, we'll just say the step spouse, you have to look through this thing through the lens of, what if we remove the title stepchildren, step spouse, or whatever? What would you do if it was your kids? And that's how the conversation should proceed. And just say, not stepkids, but let's just say kids. And so let the conversation start there. And there has to be some level of empathy and sympathy here with the other spouse, because that's their kid. So you're going to have to probably, if you're the step spouse, you're probably going to have to come halfway and bend a little and do some things that you ordinarily wouldn't do. Right. And then the spouse, that's the biological parent, you're going to have to do the same thing. Maybe you haven't told your kid no before. Well, maybe you got to tell them no. right? Or maybe you let them live there, but you give them a time limit, right? You can't live it forever. You got 60 days, 90 days. Get on your feet. You got to go, or something like that. And as hard as those decisions may be, is you have to do it together, because at the end of the day, what needs to be preserved, what has to be preserved, is the marriage.
That's right.
If the grown kids come in and stress the marriage, and the marriage break up, when the kids get on their feet, they're gonna be gone.
Right.
They're gonna be gone. They're gonna get married, or not get married, or have their own life, have their own kids, and then you'll be stuck back there wondering, what if?
Right.
What if, was this my soulmate? This and that. We'll talk about soulmates later, because I don't think that's. But anyway, it's going to be a give and take situation, and it's going to be, it's going to be painful on both sides. But at the end of the day, you gotta come together. You cannot do it in a vacuum. If you do it in a vacuum, it's going to come back to bite you, and it's going to come back to hurt you. And you gotta come with the mindset of, there's something that I'm going to have to give up here.
Right.
Both going to have to give up here.
And I don't want to belabor this topic. However, I do want to say that, some grown kids, and it's not all, but some grown kids, and this is from what I have seen from many, many different relationships, it just seems like they're a little bit selfish. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's all about them. And when you take on that new spouse, they want to come in, and the children, should I say, they want to come in and they want to act like babies again. It's like they want to monopolize your time. They want to ask for everything under the sun. And what they're doing is, and if you don't put a stop to it, what they're doing is pulling you further and further away from the person you're supposed to be building a life together with. All because you're grown doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to know your spouse. It doesn't mean that you're going to know everything about your spouse, especially when you're married at an older age. And that's like you're kind of relearning them all over again, or getting to know them better. So you're going to have to put a stop to that in reference to the grown children. Let them know, this is tough love. I love you, but you got to fend for yourself. I do want to just briefly jump on the subject of smaller children. If you're trying to blend a family with a younger child, that's just something that you should be very, very cautious of. These are just suggestions. We're throwing them out there. And the reason why I'm saying that is because so many times these days, people get into a relationship and they don't know the person who they're bringing into the relationship, and they're bringing this person around their children. It's just a really thing you should be it's something that should be very cautious about, because you don't know this person's background. You don't know what they're like. And if it comes to a point where it comes to disciplining, you both need to be on the same sheet of music in reference to disciplining, on how that discipline is going to be done. In reference to, if they discipline your child, you can't look at them all side-eye and be like, that's my baby, why you yelling at my baby? You're going to have to be at a point where you're going to come as a unified front and be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to discipline our children, because it's your child now. And from there, you're just going to have to take it pretty much one day at a time. And it's going to be a constant, it's going to be something constant that you have to do daily. You can't just do something and stop. You're going to have to constantly get to know the child, get to know what the child's habits are, likes and dislikes, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, relationship matters in that situation, and you have to develop
Right.
a relationship with the child, as well as the child's parent.
Right.
And so, what we mean by proceed with caution is, you're gonna have to date for a while and see this person in good times and bad times. You can't see that person in good times and bad times in 6 months,
Right.
because everybody knows how the game is played. When you first start dating, everybody comes with their good foot, right? They're putting on the airs, they doing all of this, they whining, dining, right? And it's just love in the air. You have to see this person when when you guys hit a bad patch in the dating phase?
Right.
How does that person respond?
Right.
If they if you see a ugly demon come out between y'all, now imagine that ugly demon come out with your kid,
Yes.
with your child.
Yes.
And so you're gonna have to get to you got to see them in the daytime and at nighttime, and that's gonna take a minute. You need to date because it's not about you anymore. It's about you and your kid.
That's right.
And if that other person has kids, watch how they interacting with their kids.
Right.
Are they supporting their kids? Are they raising their kids? Because be because the chances are, if they're not doing right by their kids and they want to get with you and y'all get together, they're probably not going to do right by your kids either.
Right.
So and all of that takes time. Time, and be honest. Look for the red flags and let those red flags speak to you. So,
Sounds good. We're
so
gonna go ahead. If we don't have any questions, I don't think so.
and you can ask
Um,
questions at slido.com, SLIDO.com. Punch in the code 49790, 49790, and they'll come up on the screen behind me here, behind us, and we can just look up and we can ask we can read the questions and answer them. And so again, this type of forum is best when you all are interactive and you ask the questions. Just
right.
ask.
Right.
Don't
Right.
be
Right.
afraid.
So the next topic we're going to talk about is balancing roles. Balancing roles. I found this topic to be really, really interesting, just for the simple fact that these days and times, balancing roles are not like they used to be. Um, in reference to, there was time back in the day where pretty much everybody who has older parents can look at their older parents and be like, oh, my mama stayed at home and she never worked outside the home, and my daddy was the one that brought in the bread, the bacon, and the eggs, and mama didn't contribute to nothing but making sure that that bread, bacon, and eggs were cooked every every morning. And so it's one of those things where now women, we're entering to relationships where we're pretty much independent,
Mm-hmm.
and we've established our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We
Good.
right.
Yeah. Bless
but
the Lord.
but at the same time, that could be a little intimidating for some men. So when you come into a relationship, that woman could still be like, okay, I know how to fend for myself. I don't need this man to do anything for me because I've been doing it before I met him. And the man is just thinking like, okay, can you just let me be the man? Can you let me take care of you?
What am I here for?
Right. And so I don't think it's one of those things, from speaking from a woman's standpoint, I don't think it's that we're trying to not let the man do for us. It's just that we're trying to help them out, not allow them to have to do so much. And I'm only saying that because when I met Keith, okay, before I met Keith, when I had my first like little car, I was filling my own gas tank up. I was putting gas in it on my own. However, when I met Keith, he told me, he was like, I don't want you filling the car up anymore. And I looked at him and I said, why not? If it needs gas, I'm going to put some gas in it. He was like, that's my duties. That's what I should be doing.
Discussion of roles.
Right. Discussion of roles. And then my thing was with him, it was funny because I felt like he shouldn't cook. And so when we got married, I would always tell him, I need to cook for you. Now, mind you, when I got married, and I'm a full disclosure, I was a horrible cook when we first got married. And you ain't got to shake your head that much. But we
Lord Jesus.
look, all I can say is many burnt offerings, but God blessed them. He kept them alive for me. Praise Jesus. But it was one of those things where I felt like I needed to be the one to cook, and I would always tell Keith, we were both working, and he would come. We were sharing one car. He would come pick me up. I would run to the kitchen real quick, take out something out of the freezer, and throw it together real fast just to keep him from having to cook anything. And the crazy part
And I
about
know
this,
how to cook.
right? And that's the crazy part. He knows how to cook, and he had a job position to where he was a little bit more flexible. When we first got married, he wasn't, making a whole lot of money, and he wasn't in like a high position, but he had the opportunity to, because I think we were like living. Were we living at where you worked at the apartment complex? Okay, so we were living in the apartment complex that he was a leasing consultant at, and he had the opportunity to come
Manager,
home.
thank you.
Right. Well, you started off with a leasing consultant. You ain't jumped to
Yeah, but when we
management.
got married, I was a manager.
Oh,
Thank
excuse
you.
me.
Yeah, we just want to clarify.
Oh, excuse me. Anyways. Okay, so he had the opportunity to come home and get dinner, like get it prepped, but I didn't want him doing that, and it's only because I saw my mom, which then my mom never worked outside the home. She had an in-home daycare, but she didn't work outside the doors, and I would always see her every day. She would have a hot meal when my dad wasn't deployed or anything. She would have a hot meal for my daddy, and I felt like that was a role that I had to hold on to because I didn't want Keith doing it. However, I had to come to a realization real quick, after those burnt offerings I was giving to him, that I need to let him help out. So there was times where I would come home and he would have like special dinners cooked and so on and so forth, and he would have the house clean and so on and so on. And so I'm just grateful. Go ahead, Keith.
So, roles, and so, and this is a gospel according to Keith. You guys can put it in your back pocket if you want to, but I think we have to erase the gender lines when it comes to roles,
Right.
because you have, as Steph so eloquently put it, you have ladies that can go out and make just as much money as a man these days. So,
Right.
and brothers, we just gotta be okay with that.
That's right.
We gotta be. It's not a kick or a threat to our ego whatsoever. So I told Steph all the time, I'm ready to call it quits. Let her go out there for a while. I'm okay.
I don't know about all that now.
but 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 and I think over the last 23 years, I think we've been kind of an example of that.
Right.
In the house, 98% of the time, I do the laundry. And I don't just wash the clothes. I wash them, I fold them, and I put them away. And so I take care, as you heard her say, I'm going to gas the car up. I'll take care of the vehicles, whatever the case may be. And so I pitch in. And so we kind of had to figure out what is best suited for us.
Right.
Right? For the finances in the house, I take care of the finances. But early on, when we first got married, she was taking care of the finances, but we didn't have no money, and so the bills were stacking up. It got kind of stressful, and she couldn't handle the stress, so I took them from her.
Yeah, 'cause I was like, look, you making pennies, and I got some bills to pay. I can't handle this.
I was I, I we found that I can handle that stress a little bit better. So
Right.
I handle the finances in the house. So these are conversations that need to be had so that you guys can determine what's the best fit for a role. What's the best role that fits you as an individual,
Right.
your skill set, your personality, and all of that. Even when it came to raising the kids, I would get up in the middle of the night. I would help feed the baby. I would do all that good stuff. I didn't have a problem with changing the diaper, this and that. When the baby cried, I didn't say, Steph, go get that baby. I didn't do any of that. And so we have to, again, erase the gender lines and figure out what's best for this particular house.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry, he kind of tickled me when he said he would get up with the boys, and which he did. A couple of nights, it was kind of funny to me because I would get up just to check on him because I was feeling a little guilty that he was allowing me to sleep and he was taking care of the boys. And a couple nights I would get up and the bottle the bottle would be like on their ear because Keith done fell asleep. Okay, I'm sorry.
The food could get in through the ear and travel down. It'll get in there though.
Oh Lord help me! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That just tickled me. So I'll wake him up. I'll be like, Keith, you're not putting the bottle in his mouth. It's in his ear. He'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, babe. No, but all jokes aside, I'm thankful because we established this thing between us when we first started dating, and this may sound crazy to some people, but Keith and I, we had some real serious conversations before we even got engaged. I mean, it was one of those things where our conversations were deep, and they weren't. I'm a hopeless romantic. I just wanted to just hear him talk. It didn't matter what he talked about, but at the same time, those conversations were like. Those conversations were important, and when I had to snap out of the whole little Cupid and hearts things, that's when I started like hearing like what he thought, and how he felt about certain things. And it was good to know that he knew how to cook. It was good to know that he knew how to clean, and it was good to know that pretty much he knows how to fend for himself. I'm not saying that there's nothing for me to do, but it just was something really. It was something really great to have in our relationship. So do you have anything else you wanna
No, that's
say?
good. Again, we want you guys to ask questions through Slido.com at 49790. And so we want to hear your thoughts,
And if you don't have
questions, and
questions,
comments.
I'm sorry, babe. If you don't have questions right now, anything else, any other topics that you may want our opinions on, or whatever the case may be. Not saying that we're experts on everything, it's just that we've been in this game for a long time. You can send them to us through our Facebook page. We have a marriage Facebook page called E5 Marriage Mentors. We have a Facebook page for that. We have our church Facebook page where you can send us inbox messages, as well as you can send us messages. Can they send messages through our website? I'm
No,
not sure.
not to the website.
Okay,
They
not
can
through the
send it
website,
from
but
here.
either one of those tools, or just call us, and then we can go ahead and talk about some stuff. Let's
And
go.
I would like to say this. I would like to say this that
Okay.
and if you have not if you have not figured it out already, that even with the raising or blended families, and then the the roles expectation in marriage, you keep hearing something over and over and over again, and that is communication, communication,
Right.
communication,
Right.
communication, communication.
That part.
And so some of these conversations are extremely hard. I get it, but the only way to get to the bottom of it, to get to the root of the problem is you're gonna have to talk. You're gonna have to and you're gonna have to talk at a time or in a setting when things are not escalated,
Right.
and that's the best time to come to a resolve. And so when you're upset and you're trying to put in um, a expectation, or you're trying to figure out how to solve a problem, that's probably not the time to do so.
Right. Right.
So you come and you just talk about it, and it may take some time, but the key is you're gonna have to talk about it. You're gonna have to talk. That's why it's you will hear us in every one of these talks. Always go back to dating,
That's right.
because marriages are made and broken in dating.
That's right.
Made and broken in dating. People don't realize that. If you can successfully date, then your chances of having a good marriage and a long lasting marriage, goes up exponentially.
That's good.
But in the dating phase, people just don't
That's right.
They don't talk about these things.
They don't.
Stephanie's right. We talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things before I even asked her to marry. We was talking about things. What's your expectations, this and that. So they kind of shy away from that because in the dating stage, we just think that it's all about sex. Let's hit it. Let's figure out how to hook up. Boom, 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 boom. And you don't talk about anything of substance.
Which we did not do until we got married.
Which
by
we
the
did
way.
not have sex prior to marriage. So
No ring, nothing.
that's another subject. That's another subject. So since we weren't having sex, we had to talk about something.
He's a hot mess. Hot mess. Help him, Jesus. So yeah, what Keith is saying is so true. A lot of times these days, people go into relationships and it's like, what are you trying to establish, kind of thing, and like Keith was saying, I'm not trying to belabor the topic, but we talked about debt when we got married. I'm sorry, when we started dating, we talked about debt. And this was not like when we first, I just want to clear this up. This wasn't when we first started dating. This was like a year into us dating one another, because that is when we saw that, this thing is getting serious between he and I. And so we started talking about, like I said, debt. We started talking about whether I wanted to continue to work once we got married and once we started having children, if I wanted to continue to work, and what he thought about that. I mean, we talked about the whole thing, how many kids we want to have. I even asked him, do you want children? Because at that time when we were dating, I was diagnosed with a condition where I couldn't have children. So I even brought up the subject of, what if I can't have children? Would you be willing to adopt? And so, like I said, I had to ask him all these things because I didn't want to, like, one day have kids if I God blessed me, but if I couldn't have children and then talk about adoption, and Keith would be like, that's out of the books. I don't even want to do that. So yeah, it was just one of those things where serious conversations you have to have them.
Yep.
Okay, so the next topic that we're going to go with is issues or expectations due to how each other was raised.
And let me just make this point. These are topics that you guys asked for.
Yeah.
And so these are not topics that we're just pulling out.
Right.
Pulling out of the air. So again, Slido.com allows you to ask questions in real time.
Right.
And you punch in the code 49790, and we can talk about them right now, right here, and we will address it. So go ahead. Expectations.
Right. So like I was saying, issues or expectations due to how each other was raised. This one was really interesting to me, and the way Keith and I pick the topics is we fold them up into little small wads of paper and we throw them out on the desk, and we just start picking, because I write them all on a piece of paper, and that's how we know what we're going to talk about, because there were so many that was presented to us. But I found this topic to be really interesting because the way Keith was raised was, and it's pretty much is going to be this way for every relationship, was totally different from how I was raised. My parents have not ever been divorced. However, his parents was, and then he ended up having a stepfather, and so it was just one of those things where my family is like a touchy-feely family, and Keith, on the other hand, his family wasn't like the touchy-feely family. So we had some, so I'm not going to say some rocky moments, but I was one of those type of people where I would tell him I loved him like all day long, 24/7, and he would just look at me and then go out and buy me a Coach purse or buy me a Dooney and Burke purse, and then he'll come back, he'll give me this gift, and I'm like, what's this for? He's like, because I love you. And I'm thinking, just tell me you love me. But he felt like that's how he was showing me his love. And so him being raised the way he was raised and me being raised the way I was raised, we kind of butted heads a couple of times because certain things that I thought was normal in my house, he was like, "That ain't normal," and vice versa. And I'm looking at him like, "No, you're the one that's not normal." but we, but thank God we got through those rocky patches, and we were able to talk about it because it was something actually to talk about.
So I'm gonna crush some spirits and hearts right now
Uh oh.
when it comes to expectations.
Uh oh.
There are so many people out there that they have expectations of what marriage is going to be like, and they throw around terms like soulmate. I'm looking for my soulmate. You ain't gonna find your soulmate.
Not even the yin to the yang.
No,
What? Okay.
you got to make the yin to the yang.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. Because when you define soulmate, you're looking for somebody that is already ready made, tailor made just for you. They're perfect. Well, you're gonna have two imperfect people that are gonna meet each other, and they're gonna fall in love, and they're gonna get married.
Right.
So when you got two imperfect people, that means there's a bunch of imperfections on both sides that need to be worked out, and that's going to be a job. And so if you're waiting on this perfect person to complete you, then you already got problems. If you need to be completed outside of Jesus Christ, you already got problems. You don't need to be married. And so and so your soulmate, as the Bible says, should your mate, not soulmate, give him that word. Your mate should be coming as a help to you. And I know when the Bible puts that in connotation, they talk about the wife being a helpmate, but the man should be a helpmate to the wife. What can I do to make your life better? How can I help you? They should be equally yoked. We'll get on that in a minute. And so when you have these two imperfect people that are coming with these expectations, those expectations need to be talked about, communicated way up front, and then you guys need to make a determination if it's going to work. If it's going to work. You know, we do premarital counseling, and we send these couples through this test, this online test we have them take. And man, it is very invasive. And then we get this report back, and we can see how, what they say, compatible these people are. I'm yet to see one that has came back that says these people are just a match made in heaven, because you got boy, girl, and then you got them coming from different backgrounds, different environments, and you're gonna put all that under one roof. That already is gonna be chaos. And so what we should be doing is entering into a marriage, trying to figure out how to relieve some of the burdens off our spouse, and to be able to help them and be able to support them throughout life. And if you do that and your spouse do that, guess what? Now we clicking, because you're waking up in the morning thinking about her, and she's waking up in the morning thinking about you, and then she's trying to meet your needs and he's trying to meet her needs. Your needs are going to get met. But what happens is selfishness sets in, and people say, well, I can't do that. Well, in order to meet somebody's needs, it's going to take you out your comfort zone, and you're going to have to stretch yourself in order to do that. That's what you're asking your spouse to do. Everything that all of your needs that need to be met are not going to be comfortable for her to meet those. But if you are okay with not being selfish, and okay with stretching yourself, everybody's needs are met. Well, not everybody, both of your needs, because it should be only two people involved here. And so two people needs are met, and guess what? Now, after the wedding, the marriage begins. But those expectations, you can't look to the home that you came out of. You can't look to other people because the home that you came out of might be dysfunctional,
That's right.
and where you came from is totally different from the way from where she came from.
Right.
And so you're gonna try to put all of that under one roof and say, let's have a successful marriage. You are inviting chaos into your life. And so, but you can you can you can navigate through this chaos with the love of Christ and have a successful marriage.
Right.
So
And excuse me. While Keith was talking about the different needs, it made me think about a book. And this book is titled "His Needs, Her Needs," and it's by Willard Harley.
yeah,
His
I remember that
needs,
book.
his
Yeah.
needs, her needs, and I think I may still have a copy of it at home. But it's really interesting. You know, like Keith was saying, how when you go into a relationship, you have all these um, like these preloaded
Preconceived
expectations.
notions, yeah.
Yeah, and you're looking at the person like, this is what I want, this is how I want them to respond to whatever it is, this is how I want them to act. However, they may not have been raised that way. They could have been raised in a household where arguing was the way that their parents got their point across. um, God forbid, fist fighting was the way their parents got their point across. They could have been raised in a household where their parents just didn't talk to each other at all. Could have been sleeping in different bedrooms. And it's one of those things where when you all in your relationship have intense fellowship, they respond to that in the way that they saw growing up. So they may or may not um, like retreat. They may go into another room, they may get quiet, or they may start yelling and become combative. And then you never know, like, what is this all coming from? Why are they coming at me like this? But what you don't know is how they were raised. What you don't know is what they saw in their household. So yeah, I mean, it's something. It really
Yeah.
is.
The Bible says seek to understand.
That's
and
right.
so if you get in a relationship and you're seeking to understand that person, first of all, that's a project. That's over time. I've been married to Stephanie 23 years. We've been together for 26 years, and I'm still understanding some things 26 years later that I didn't understand when we first met. So it's a process. When you seek to understand, then things get better. I understand a little bit better now after 26 years why and how she responds to things, but it took having those hard conversations for me to get to that point. We should seek to understand our spouse, and when we do that, we get a greater appreciation for our spouse. You just might find out, well, they ain't crazy after all.
Lord, no, not that.
It could be hurts. It
Right,
could be
right.
pains. It could be a previous relationship. It could be environments. And so now you're taking that on. You just can't say that's their issue.
Right.
No, you have to take that on, and you got to get in the foxhole with your spouse and work through that stuff together. But what happens is when you understand it more and you understand it better, now you don't get hurt so easily, and then you want to toss around the D word, and then you want to just call you just want to throw in the towel.
Right.
Because now you taking the stance of let me try to understand, let me help. Now I know what's really going on, and then you guys are moving forward, and you become a support for one another.
That's
So it's not all your spouse's fault. It's not all your spouse's fault.
So before we move on to the next topic, I'm just going to share something in relation to Keith and I. In my family, I've been raised in a family of a bunch of talkers, And I think the only two people in my immediate family that don't talk too much is my sister Toya and my mom. The
Yeah.
rest, they're pretty. They're kind of quiet at times, but the rest of us we talk like 24/7. However, Keith,
All the time. All the time.
wow, really?
Start from Earl Mitchell on down. No.
Ooh, shame. Sorry, Dad, if you're watching. So it's funny because in Keith, in his household, they don't talk, and they don't. I don't think they really communicate, and
talk.
so yeah, what like 2 words?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah, like
yeah,
okay, yeah,
That's
okay.
communication.
So when we got
Tribal communication.
oh, that's tribal. So when we started seriously dating, I would want to be having like I said, we talked a lot, but it would take for me to ask a lot of questions in order to get him going, and then finally he would like just break loose. But then it's like when we got married, I don't know, he kind of like reverted back to this quiet Keith, and he stopped talking. So it got to a point where I'm like, okay, can you at least say something? And then what I had to understand is Keith is a processor. So when I'm talking, he's so busy trying to process everything that I'm saying that he wants to make sure that he comes up with a solution. So we made a pact between he and that was when I come to him ready to talk, he would ask me, "Do you want me to solve this problem or do you want me to listen?" So we came to that agreement after several years of me looking at him like, "Oh, you can't say nothing." So he was like, in the middle of me talking, he would stop and he would be like, "Is this a conversation that you want me to just listen, or is this the conversation that I need to solve?" And it would cause me to pause for a minute, and I would look and I'd be like, "Okay, I think I want a little bit of both." Or I would tell him, "Right now, I just need you to listen." Or I would tell him, "I need you to fix this." But he knew how to respond in that way, so that way he can actually know, what agreement we were trying to come up with.
Which
So,
leads me to another point. You know, some people will say, some couples will say things like, you know, well, they should know what I want. If we love each other, we've been together this long, they should know what they want.
they're not mind readers.
Not mind readers, and neither are you. And so there's nothing wrong with asking those questions, just to be sure. Especially, again, you're dealing with two personality types.
Right.
Stephanie, at any given moment, has 50 thoughts running through her mind. Me, I have to process them one at a time because I'm an analytical thinker. She's a creative thinker, and so now you got this analytical person in the house along with a creative person in the house. There's bound to be clashes, and you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. Marriage is the hardest job you will ever have. I played football. I've been in the Army. I've been to war. I jumped out of airplanes. I worked in corporate America. It is all easier than being married.
Okay. So before we go to our next topic, I'm gonna have to pause here for just a moment. You love saying that
Yes,
a
I do.
lot. However, it
Come on,
ain't
set the expectations.
okay. I appreciate you setting the expectations, but you got people thinking I'm just some hellion at home.
No, it's not you. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who I was married to. Marriage itself. That's why I say
Yeah, who you married?
it's hard. Marriage itself.
You married to me.
Right. I say it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
It's not
All
you.
right, okay.
That's why I say all of that is easier than marriage. Not married to Steph, but marriage itself.
See, I'll say that marriage is a tough job, but I'm not gonna go as far as talk about jumping out of airplanes, getting shot at by by the enemy, or going to the war. I'm not gonna say all that, dog.
Think about it. I could jump out of an airplane and be done in a couple seconds. I'm down. Hit the ground, celebrate, boom, it's over.
Wow, but you can also jump out and be dead.
I could.
Okay, let's go to our last topic. My boys think we crazy over here. All last topic that we're going to talk about is a difference of opinions, and it kind of piggybacks on the expectations due
Yeah.
to how each other was raised. Just you know, there's always going to be a difference of opinion.
Conflict resolution.
It's always going to be one because me speaking for myself, I'm female, Keith's male, and there's always going to be a difference of opinion.
Yep.
And I think the biggest thing is how do you handle those differences when you have a different opinion. I know that I'm very opinionated, and so is Keith. And we both, when we get into conversations, I'm like, I got something to say about that, and Keith's not necessarily trying to hear what I got to say about that, but he'll just sit there and look at me, and then the look on his face is telling me I'm not ready for your opinion right now. That's when I shut it down. But then there's other times where he looks at me and he's like, okay, what do you think about that? And those are the times where I know I could continue. But when he gives me that look like, and I'm like, okay, you know what? He don't want to hear what I got to say right now, and vice versa. So you have to know each other and know when to cut it off and when to keep it going. But you're always going to have a difference of opinion. I mean, just it's like night and day,
So, and with difference of opinion comes conflict.
right?
And so, conflict resolution, how do you handle that? Well, the first thing you have to do is you got to confront the conflict.
That's right. That's
You
right.
can't let it. You can't try to bury it and think that it's just gonna just go away magically. Because what'll happen is that issue's going to resurrect itself at the most unopportune time,
Right.
and then you may end up saying something or doing something that you can't take back, and it's going to leave a lasting impression on the person that you love. And so that's number one. You can't be afraid to confront whatever the conflict is. And here is something that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to conflict resolution. Speak your feelings. That other person needs to know how you feel, because that may change everything. But sometimes people hold back the way they really feel, and they don't want to be transparent because they're afraid to get hurt even more.
Right.
Well, the wound is already there. You got to take a chance of opening it up so it can heal. And so you might as well go ahead and share your feelings. And so you can't come from a standpoint of this dogmatic attitude, like, I'm not going any further, I'm not doing anything, I'm sticking right here. Da, 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 da. Share your true feelings.
Right.
Yes, so things like what you did, this hurt me. When this happened, it hurt me, and this is how I felt. You don't have to use words that are so accusatory,
Right.
but you can share how you felt when it came to that. And so then you're seeking to come up with a resolution. You're seeking to come up with a remedy. You don't leave it just open-ended, right? You want to have a good conversation about where do we go from here? How do we solve it? And for God's sakes, forgive each other.
Right.
That's the last thing.
Got to forgive each other.
Because most of the time, and I say most, that person, your spouse, did not wake up that morning and say, let me see how I'm going to tick my spouse off today. Let me see what I can do to make make her mad. I'm going to do this and this. They did something. That caused a conflict that they probably shouldn't do. Granted, we got it, and maybe they did it, and it's not the first time they did it, but I guarantee you that they're not doing it to seek to just hurt you. They may be doing it for other selfish reasons, but they're not doing it to seek you to hurt you. Now, I'm going to preface that statement by saying I know that there are some people that are just vindictive like that.
That's right.
They can get ugly, they can just get nasty, and they just want to hurt
Right.
that person. And if you're in that type of situation, you shouldn't be in that marriage anyway, or that relationship anyway. If you got a person that is purposely
Right.
trying to be nasty and hurt you, it's probably time to go.
But
It's
I
probably
think
time to go.
even in that situation, Keith, I think more times than not, that person who seems to come off as vindictive or come off as if they're trying to hurt their spouse, it's because they've been hurt so bad in their previous experiences.
Right.
And so like the old saying goes, hurt people. And if you and just thinking about that, a lot of times stuff will come out, and it's not like they're intentionally trying to do it, although it may seem like they are, but subconsciously that's stuff that they had pushed down for so long, and it just came out at that point, and it came out towards the person where they felt safe with. And unfortunately, a lot of times that person they feel safe with has to get the grunt of the anger or the hostility, because they know that that person will still love them in spite of how they're treating them. But one thing I just wanted to just add to something that Keith said, and then we're going to be getting ready to end. And he was talking about conflict and resolving conflict, and it's something he was talking about how to be careful on how the words that you use in reference to if you are having a situation where you guys are having intense fellowship. Um, Whenever you have that situation, that when it arises, be careful not to do the you, because once you start doing the you did this, you did that, that person will feel like they're being attacked. Instead of doing the you, switch it around and say, I feel like, and I felt as if, because that person will have the opportunity to think, and they'll be like, okay, maybe I did come at them in a different kind of way, and I made them feel some type of way. So that was just a little something I want to just throw in there to add on to what Keith was saying.
And
Um,
I also want to say that the Bible is really clear on how to have a conflict.
right.
So we covered some of it, right? If there's an issue, go to that person. So you need to have a conversation with your spouse,
Yes.
and then you need to talk it out. And if it continues, the Bible also says, right, the last resort is that you can get a intermediary.
Yes.
You can get a pastor, someone,
That's not going to take your side.
right, someone that is not biased.
Right.
So you can't go get your brother or sister,
Mm-mm. Mommy and daddy.
not your mom and your daddy. Even though mom and daddy might might not be biased,
Unless it's my mama. But she always took your side over everything, and I don't. I don't know about that one.
but it still wouldn't be fair.
You're right. You're right.
Still would be fair.
You're right.
Go get someone that you know that does not have the propensity to having to being biased at all, and let them referee the conversation. And then typically when you hear the person telling their side of the story to someone else for the first time, bells go off, and and you will hear you hear these things in your head like that. You'll be like, that's not what I said, or that's not how it went. But what you have to realize is, as you saying that, even that lets you know that everything was unintentional,
Right.
but that's how that person received that. And so now that's the starting point to having a more wholesome conversation, because you can come back and say, you know what, I that wasn't my intention. Here's what I was thinking. Maybe it didn't get communicated well, and because that receiver is receiving things through a lot of different lenses. And so in order to deal with that conflict, sometimes you got to talk it out and hear yourself out loud. So, yeah. Yep. So that's how you handle differences without going to blows at one another. But I will say this, and a lot of conflicts can be resolved with this. This is going back to dating and stuff. And a lot of conflicts can be resolved with having a conversation and setting ground rules in the beginning. And I give you an example. This is, and we'll close with this. This is a personal testimony that Stephanie and I had. Any marriage statistic that you look up on divorce, first of all, it's going to tell you that 51% of marriages end in divorce. And then if you drill down a little further, you look at why marriages end in divorce. One of the top things is finances. That's you guys may not believe this, but but when I say this, I'm saying it inside of a church. So God strike me down. And so if I'm telling a lie, before we got married, I told Steph the one thing we will not do. This is setting expectations. This is getting ahead of conflict resolution. The one thing we will not do is argue over money.
That's right.
Argue over money. I won't do it. Will not do it, and because it didn't make sense to me at the time. Especially when we got married, and I was only making like $28,000 a year. What am I arguing over? Thousands of dollars? That's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy to me. $28,000 and we deep in debt. What am I arguing over?
Right.
And so that's not that. It just the benefit was just not high enough for me. And so 23 years later, we have never had an argument over money. Have I've gotten upset about some spending? Yes. I go, collect myself, I come back, and we have a conversation about it. Have we had to make some decisions about money and spending? Yes. But they were made, they were not made under duress. They were made under the peace treaty. The peace treaty is we're not going to argue over money, and we've kept that promise. We kept that promise for 23 years. I just refused to do it, and so now I'm at the point now where in our life where we're doing very well, and there's probably a little bit more to argue over, but and we haven't had to have this. We haven't had to have this argument about money. So we got a question. Go ahead.
Okay, but before we go to our question, I am going to correct you on one thing. It was $28,000 that you were bringing in, but we didn't have any debt. Because remember, you made me get rid of all my credit cards before we got married. So we had no debt, but the rent and the car note. And that was pretty much it.
Well, we still had a little bit. We were working on it.
There you go.
We knocked out a bunch of it.
No, it wasn't that much. But one thing, Keith is exactly what he's saying is so true. Keith is a saver. I'm a spender, and we knew that going into the marriage. And it was so funny because God has actually really worked on me, and I had learned some things. Thank you to all the wise women in my life, First Lady Johnson, my mama, because there was many conversations, and or should I say, me listening to them give me wisdom. It was funny because when we earlier started, in an earlier part of our marriage, it was funny because Keith would, like I said, I was doing the finances at one point, but I got too stressed out, so Keith took over the budget. And he started budgeting. And Keith is one of those type of people. Back then, he would have an Excel spreadsheet with everything that we owed all on this Excel spreadsheet, and it would like calculate at the bottom whether we had money or whether we had no money left over. And it was so funny because I never really paid any attention to that spreadsheet, and I would go out to the store and come back with my 10th pair of black shoes, and Keith would look at me and he would say, "Babe, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I needed these shoes." And then he'll stop for a minute and he'll just look at me and he'll be like, "Step, come over here, look at my spreadsheet." He would take me and show me the spreadsheet, and I would look at that spreadsheet and I'll be like, "That's all the money we got?" And then there goes me back at the store taking up shoes back.
Thank God for Microsoft Excel.
But it was just the funniest thing. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead and do the question.
So let me say this before I ask this question, 'cause I got to talk about this. I know we're supposed to be done, but um, again, to head off conflicts, if you talk about them in advance under the peace treaty, it makes it easy, right? But then too, you have to. It's okay to set up parameters within the peace treaty to keep you from arguing. So
Right.
one of the things that we set up is because, like she said, I'm gonna say what she's a spender. It's 23 years later, she's still a spender. So I'm not gonna. I'm gonna beat my head up against the wall trying to change it. It ain't gonna change. It's in her DNA. You know, she has a shopping ministry. So what we did was we established a don't ask, don't tell account, which means we decided on a certain amount that'll go into the account that was just all hers. Even you know, we both were working, so and that's another whole story. But we both were working, but we only had one account.
That's right.
And so we made the determination. This what goes in the don't ask, don't tell account, and that's exactly what it is. Don't ask, don't tell. I ain't asked. She didn't tell. Although I can see stuff, but that solved a lot of problems because now I got my spreadsheet and I'm comfortable with it. I can hug it because I know what's going to be left. I've already factored that out. Once it's gone, it's gone. Can't come back. This is don't ask, don't tell. So we got a question. What advice would you give to an individual who has been single and want to mingle? No, it says who has been single for 10 years and is wanting to date again. Books, comments, talks based on what was just shared. So I'll let you take that. So yeah.
So the question is, if the person has been single, is it said for 10 years?
Been single for 10 years, single and ready to mingle.
And they want to start dating again.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel that in a situation like that, and it's been, 10 years, it's not extremely long, but it is some time that you were without a significant other. My suggestion to whoever wrote this question would be tread cautiously, because what could happen is the first person, and there's like a lot of wolves out there in sheep's clothing. I really feel like the first person that comes to you and that wants to start courting you should not be the very first person that you be like, okay, this is the person I'm going to end up marrying. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I know it may have been 10 years. However, you want to still not seem desperate. And like they say now, you don't want to look thirsty. And you just want to make sure that whoever you're getting to this relationship with, although you may be excited and floating on cloud nines or whatever the case may be, just be really mindful of that. I would recommend that there's books out there. There's several books out there that talks about being single, waiting for your mate, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of books out there on that. I actually read a couple before me and Keith started dating because I wanted somebody. I wanted a husband. I mean, I wanted a boyfriend. Not even like a husband at that point. I just wanted a boyfriend, and so just be really cautious that when you enter that relationship that you don't move too fast. And it's okay. I really don't see anything wrong with online dating. I mean, I know people may have their drawbacks from that, but Christian Mingle going through there. I'm not saying everybody on there is truly a Christian. However, I'm pretty sure they try to vet them out pretty good. But even if you are like going through avenues like that, still get to know the person.
Yep.
Get to know them. I mean, words sometimes words can be just a bunch of fluff, and
Yep.
people these guys will just throw that out there, just music to your ears, make you feel all happy, but at the same time you don't know what their motives are. So if you are dating somebody that way and you've been without someone for an extended period of time, take your time, ask questions, see how they respond. If they get snappy or combative, you know that that's probably not the one for you. But like I said, just tread lightly, and the right one, God will let you know that that is the one that you need to be with. But yeah,
So you brought up Christian. I mean, online dating
right.
or meeting someone online,
Yes,
right? It doesn't really matter how you meet them. Time is what's important here,
that's right.
right? Because you can meet someone at church and they could turn out to be a fool, but you don't know you won't know that until you spend some time with them. And so I know a lot of churches and Christians they frown against meeting their mate online. It does. It's what happens after you meet that's important, right? And we can't stress enough. We can't stress enough. Time, time, and spending time with this person and observing them in the good times and the bad times, which means you guys got to have a couple of fights, so that you can see what that person is like. But after 10 years, yeah,
Disagreements, not fights.
okay, disagreements, yeah.
You don't be fighting,
But after 10 years, yeah, it's okay to date. You should date. You should date, and you should date with standards.
That's right.
You should date with standards. I'm not sure who asked this question, but if you are a Christian, one of your standards should be,
But they love God before anything else in
yep,
this world.
they love God
First and
and
foremost.
no ring,
Nothing.
and so
No wed,
no
no
bed,
bed.
and so that should be some of your standards
That's right.
that are there, and be open to whomever God brings into your life, and so vet them a little bit,
That's right.
and so I can't say that enough. Bring them around, people that you hold in high regard,
That's right.
like your pastor or somebody that doesn't have a biased opinion.
Yeah,
He said, well,
somebody that's looking that's not in the situation.
yeah,
Because our
yeah,
vision is clearer out
right,
here than what you're
right,
seeing.
right. Because I mean, I used to make a joke to some of the single women at our church. I used to say that all significant others are subject of the approval of the pastor, the purpose of the church. And I said that jokingly, but I said that because bring them around, and don't be afraid to have a conversation with me about them, or somebody, right? Somebody that's objective. Don't bring them around that that needy girlfriend who is bitter, right? That's not the person. That's not the person you want to bring around, right? Because even though she might love you, she might be blinded to the fact that she wants to see you happy, and so she might not give you objective advice. Oh, girl, he ain't that bad. He ain't this, and in actuality, he might be a what they say, sheep's in wolf clothing,
Wolf in sheep's clothing.
right? Wolf in sheep's clothing, or it might be the other, be like, nah, he ain't for you. He ain't this. He ain't that. And all the time she's scheming, trying to figure out how to get with him. And so bring them around somebody that's totally objective. And you date, you have fun. Look for those red flags. When you see the red flags, don't discount those red flags, and be like, well, maybe it's this, could be this. Nah, red flag is a red flag is a red flag, and don't be afraid to shut it off.
That's
All
right.
right, and don't be afraid to date again. And so go into it with tempered expectations into that relationship. Have fun. Keep Christ at the center of it.
Yes.
I can't say that enough. I can't say you know you heard Step say one thing that she's opinionated and I'm opinionated. Well, we have a no compete clause.
Right.
When you got two opinionated people, we can't compete with each other.
Right.
And so when you have a no compete clause, there has to be an arbitrator. The arbitrator is Jesus Christ.
That's right.
He's the one that's going to decide what's right and what's wrong. And if you are a Christian, man or woman, and you're trying to date, then you get someone who's not a Christian man or woman, then you are starting out behind the eight ball already. I'm not saying that a relationship can't work, but you're going to have extra work to do because your core values is placed differently than that person's core values. And that's a steep hill to climb. Steep hill to climb. There's a reason why the Bible says be not unequally yoked. But people do it all the time. Some people make it work. Some people make it, and some people can't make it work. The statistics are the same. I'm just saying that it's much harder. It is extremely harder when you guys' core values don't line up. So
That is so true. And so we're going to get ready to close. But, you know, I heard a few people ask me, why did Keith and I date for 3 years? And I've heard this more than once. And they just wanted to know that wasn't it hard dating someone that you loved so much, you cared about so much, for 3 years? And I was even asked, did you not find him attractive? I found him very attractive, and it was not easy dating Keith for 3 years. However, I wanted to make sure that we got to know each other, although we are still learning one another. I wanted to really see who this man was. I mean, Keith was one and still is one smooth brother, and I want to make sure that that he wasn't just telling me everything I wanted to hear, because it was just to a point where I wanted our relationship to be honorable in God's sight. I wanted God to be pleased when I was dating him. So that's the reason why when we started dating, I told him that I'm a virgin. And I told him I will not be having sex with you before marriage. And I meant that. And I'm just going to let you know that it being full transparency, it wasn't easy just being around him and me finding him attractive and so on and so forth. We had to set boundaries. That meant that when it hit a certain time, I had to go home. If I was at his apartment watching movies, I had to go home. If he came over to my house and everybody went to bed, it was time for Keith to go home. When we went out to public places. We didn't end up in a corner somewhere, because the devil is tricky, and I wanted to still honor God that way, because that was a commitment that I made to the Lord. I know these days and times things change, and people, are just doing whatever they want to do. But if you are a Christian and you are professing Christ, and you want to uphold your standards before God, you're going to have to set some boundaries. And that means that whoever you get into a relationship with, they need to know what those boundaries are. And if they can't respect your boundaries, that means they're not the one for you. They just need to go ahead and get to stepping, like Martin said. Get to stepping.
all right, guys. I don't know if we have any more questions, but I will give it one more second, then we'll close out in prayer. I'm going to say this for the person who asked about dating. One piece of advice that I will leave with you is that you should date. You should set your standard and date accordingly.
That's right.
Date potential, which means if you know from the first 5 minutes you meet a person that they are not husband or wife material, don't even waste your time.
That's right.
You should go into it looking for someone that has the potential to be your lifelong mate. And
But I think that really goes for somebody who's older. I mean, younger people, I think they need to.
Right. And this person said they've been
Oh,
single for
okay.
10 years,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
and they want to date again.
Right.
When you're younger, yeah, you're trying to figure some things out, and so you don't even know what you want when you're younger.
Right.
And so, but this person, I'm making the assumption when they said 10 years, they were once married, now they're not, and then they've been single for 10 years. So you're looking for somebody that has that potential,
Right.
and go into it with that expectation, and go into it with they had a potential until they prove otherwise.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Good, good, good. Well, we are going to end for this evening, and like I said, we'll be doing this once a month. You still have opportunity to throw out any topics that you may want um, our opinions on. And like I stated before, we're not claiming to be experts in these subjects. However, we try to give you information that is biblically one, and information of what we've already um, experienced, because we have talked to so many couples over the years, and pretty much every subject you possibly think of, we probably already heard it.
yep.
And that's just something. Keith and I have a passion for this, and this is what we do. We have a passion for relationships. Um, I can't wait till I finally get my counseling degree, because I want to open up a marriage and family therapy counseling agency.
Certification.
Yes,
Get
yeah,
certified.
yes,
Yeah.
get my license.
Right.
And so, so it's just one of those things where I want to continue this, and we want to be here to help those who are in need. So,
She
we're
has a degree in social psychology.
Yeah,
She
but
needs to get to more coursework and then become
yeah,
licensed.
well,
So yeah, I
yes,
want to make sure that
yes,
people understand that.
yes, yes.
She's educated.
Oh. I need to get more educated, just a
Yeah.
little bit more. All right. So with that being said, Keith, you're gonna close us out in prayer, and then we can go ahead and end for this evening, because I know my boys are giving us the side eye.
All right, let's pray. Lord God, we thank you for this session that we had, oh God. We thank you for the opportunity to come into your presence to talk about marriage and relationships, oh God, and how to build a healthy marriage as you have ordained. We ask now that you bless every person that tuned in, bless their home, bless their relationship. If they're looking for a mate, God, send them a mate, God. You send somebody that will love them the way you have intended for them to love. We thank you right now in advance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We love you guys, and thank you so much for being with us tonight.